The sharp click of designer heels echoed through the marble corridor of Westbrook University's economics building. 22-year-old Eliza Winters clutched her presentation folder, knuckles white against the cheap plastic. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a desperate prisoner. Today was the day, the final presentation that would determine her scholarship renewal. "Look who decided to show up," sneered Vanessa Ashcroft, heiress to the Ashcroft Hotel's empire. She leaned against the wall surrounded by her equally privileged friends. "Still wearing your thrift shop finest, I see." Eliza straightened her second-hand blazer, bought with 3 months of tip money from her waitressing job. "At least I earned everything I'm wearing," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Behind Vanessa stood Connor Montgomery, his steel blue, eyes observing the exchange with an unreadable expression. As the son of business mogul Lawrence Montgomery, Connor had never spoken a word to Eliza, but his silent presence at these humiliations felt like complicity. "Earned?" Vanessa laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Let's see what you've earned after your presentation. I heard Professor Harrington already has reservations." Eliza's blood ran cold. Professor Harrington was known for favoring students with connections. Connections Eliza decidedly lacked. Inside the lecture hall, Eliza set up her presentation with trembling hands. The room filled with students, Connor and Vanessa taking seats in the front row. Professor Harrington nodded curtly, signaling her to begin. "My thesis proposes a sustainable microfinance model for rural communities," Eliza began, her voice finding strength as she spoke about the project she'd poured her soul into. For 15 minutes, she presented flawlessly, her passion evident in every carefully researched point. Then came the questions. "Interesting theory, Miss Winters," Professor Harrington said, his tone suggesting otherwise. "But how would this work without significant capital investment? Perhaps Mr. Montgomery would care to comment on the practical limitations." Connor stood, adjusting his perfectly tailored suit. "Actually," he began, and Eliza braced herself, "I think Winters has accounted for the capital constraints quite brilliantly." A stunned silence fell over the room. "Her proposal leverages community resources in a way most traditional models overlook," Connor continued, his voice gaining confidence. "It's innovative." Professor Harrington's jaw tightened. "Well, that's one perspective. However, what happened next would haunt Eliza for years. As if choreographed, Vanessa's coffee cup tipped over, sending dark liquid cascading across Eliza's presentation materials and laptop. The computer sparked, smoking slightly, along with Eliza's hopes of retaining her scholarship. "Oops," Vanessa said, not bothering to hide her smile. Humiliated tears threatened as Eliza tried desperately to save her work, aware of the snickers rippling through the room. Connor made a move as if to help, then stopped when Vanessa caught his arm. "Miss Winters," Professor Harrington sighed, "without your supporting materials, I'm afraid I can't adequately assess your work. Your scholarship status will have to be reconsidered." In that moment, Eliza looked directly at Connor Montgomery, their eyes locking in a moment of uncomfortable recognition. She saw something there, pity perhaps or guilt, before she gathered her ruined materials and fled the hall. She never returned to Westbrook University. 15 years later, "Mom, the sink's doing that thing again," called 11-year-old Theo from the kitchen of their modest apartment. Eliza Winters, now 37 and owner of Second Chances, a small bookstore cafe in the heart of Millfield, rushed in with a wrench. "Stand back, repairwoman extraordinaire coming through," she announced with mock heroism, making her son laugh. Life hadn't turned out as she'd planned after that fateful day at Westbrook, but she'd built something meaningful, a cozy business that welcomed everyone regardless of their background, and a home filled with love for Theo, whose father had disappeared before he was born. "Why don't we just call a real plumber?" Theo asked, adjusting his glasses. "Because real plumbers cost real money," Eliza replied, grunting as she tightened a fitting. "And this month's budget is already spoken. For with your science camp." The leak stopped and Eliza triumphantly raised her wrench like Excalibur. "See? Who needs a degree when you have YouTube tutorials? Theo rolled his eyes affectionately. Mom, you're so... A crash from outside interrupted them. They rushed to the window overlooking the alley behind their apartment building. There, sprawled amid fallen trash cans, lay an elderly man in what had once been expensive clothing, now dirty and disheveled. Call 911, Eliza instructed Theo, already rushing for the door. In the alley, she knelt beside the man who was conscious but clearly disoriented. Sir, can you hear me? Are you hurt? His eyes, a familiar steel blue, focused on her face with confusion. I don't know where I am, he murmured. Or who I am. As Eliza helped him sit up, she noticed the fine quality of his weathered clothing beneath the dirt, the manicured hands now scraped from his fall, and most importantly, the blank terror in his eyes, the look of someone who had lost himself completely. It's okay, she reassured him, taking his trembling hand. We'll figure this out together. Little did she know that this moment of kindness would collide her world with the one she'd left behind 15 years ago, and with the man who had witnessed her greatest humiliation. The paramedics insisted on taking the elderly man to the hospital despite his protests. Eliza found herself inexplicably concerned about the confused gentleman and volunteered to accompany him. You don't have to come with me, the man said, his aristocratic accent surfacing through his confusion. I know, Eliza replied, climbing into the ambulance beside him. But nobody should face hospitals alone. Theo, ever pragmatic, had called Mrs. Gonzalez from upstairs to stay with him and promised to handle the evening rush at the bookstore cafe. At 12, he sometimes seemed 30, a thought that both filled Eliza with pride and broke her heart a little. At St. Mary's Hospital, the man was admitted for tests while Eliza waited, scrolling through emails on her phone. The cafes. Rent was increasing again, another problem for another day. Excuse me, a nurse approached. Are you family? No, She's with me, the elderly man called weakly from his bed. Please let her stay. The nurse nodded and left them alone. Thank you, he said. I don't know why, but you seem trustworthy. I'm Eliza Winters, she said, extending her hand. He took it, frowning in concentration. I wish I could tell you my name. How about I call you Mr. Blue? For your eyes. Those eyes, still sharp despite his condition, crinkled with amusement. Mr. Blue it is. The doctor eventually arrived with the results. Good news and bad news, she explained. Physically, you're in remarkable shape for a man in his 70s, but you're experiencing severe retrograde amnesia, likely triggered by emotional trauma rather than physical injury. Will I get my memory back? Mr. Blue asked. Most likely, yes, but it could take days, weeks, or longer. When the doctor left, Eliza made a rash decision. You need somewhere to stay while you recover. I couldn't impose. We have a pull-out sofa, she insisted. Unless you'd prefer a shelter? The look of quiet panic on his distinguished face made the decision for both of them. 3 days later, Mr. Blue had become part of their small family routine. He insisted on helping at the bookstore, revealing an unexpected talent for organization and an encyclopedic knowledge of classic literature despite his amnesia. Muscle memory, he explained, alphabetizing a shelf of novels. Apparently, I was quite the reader. Eliza watched him charm customers with witty literary references he didn't remember learning. There was something familiar about him, something she couldn't quite place. That evening, as they closed up shop, the bell above, the door jingled. Eliza looked up to see a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit. Her blood froze. 15 years hadn't changed him much. Still unfairly handsome, still radiating that quiet confidence that came from never having to worry about money. Connor Montgomery. I'm sorry. We're closed, she managed, her voice steadier than her hands. His eyes, the same steel blue as Mr. Blue's, widened in recognition. Eliza? Eliza Winters? Before she could respond, Theo bounded from the back room. "Mom, Mr. Blue showed me how to make real Italian espresso and—" He stopped, seeing the stranger. Connor's gaze moved from Theo to Eliza, questions forming behind those eyes. "What are you doing here?" Eliza asked, unconsciously stepping between Connor and her son. "I've been searching every hospital and shelter in a 50-mile radius," Connor replied, his voice tight with barely contained emotion. "Someone matching my father's description was brought to St. Mary's 3 days ago, but he was discharged with a woman and a young boy." His eyes narrowed. "They said the woman owned a bookstore cafe called Second Chances." The pieces clicked into horrifying place. Eliza turned to look at Mr. Blue, at Lawrence Montgomery, the billionaire real estate mogul whose company had destroyed her parents' neighborhood to build luxury condominiums, whose son had witnessed her humiliation and done nothing. "Your father?" she whispered. Mr. Blue, Lawrence, looked between them with confusion. "Connor? That's my son's name?" Connor's professional demeanor cracked. In 3 long strides he crossed to his father, embracing him with unexpected tenderness. "Dad," he said, voice thick, "we've been looking everywhere." Over Connor's shoulder, Lawrence's eyes met Eliza's, panic flaring in them. "I don't remember him," he whispered to her. "Why don't I remember? My own son?" Eliza's heart twisted. Despite everything, she moved to Lawrence's side. "It's okay," she soothed. "The doctor said it would take time." Connor released his father and turned to her, composure restored except for the slight redness around his eyes. "You've been taking care of him? Why?" "Because he needed help," she replied simply. Something shifted in Connor's expression. Surprise, reassessment. He studied her with new interest. "We should get you home, Dad," he said finally, never taking his eyes off Eliza. "Our neurologist should examine you." Lawrence gripped Eliza's hand. "I don't want to go." The naked vulnerability in the statement hung in the air. Connor's jaw tightened. "Perhaps," Eliza suggested carefully, "Mr. Montgomery could stay here tonight, and tomorrow you could bring your doctor here. Another sudden change might not be good for his recovery." Connor looked as if he might argue, then glanced at his father's distressed face. "All right," he conceded. To Eliza's surprise, he pulled out a business card and jotted something on the back. "My personal number. Call if anything changes." After he left, an awkward silence fell. "So," Theo said brightly, "Mr. Blue is actually Mr. Montgomery, billionaire real estate guy? Cool. Does this mean we get a reward?" "Theo," Eliza admonished, but Lawrence laughed, a genuine unguarded sound. "I may not remember being a billionaire," Lawrence said, "but I think my son might be a bit intense." Eliza thought of Connor's expression when he looked at his father. The worry, the relief, the love. "He cares about you," she said softly. Later that night, after Theo and Lawrence were asleep, Eliza pulled out her laptop. She Googled Connor Montgomery and was immediately inundated with images of the man she'd met today. Older, more serious than the university student she remembered, featured in Forbes and Fortune alongside headlines like "Montgomery Air Transforms Father's Empire" and "Real Estate Giant Pivots to Sustainable Development." One particular headline caught her eye. "Montgomery Industries announces affordable housing initiative following CEO's mysterious absence." Clicking through, she found a recent article detailing how Lawrence Montgomery had disappeared 3 weeks ago, leaving his son to run the company. Under Connor's temporary leadership, Montgomery Industries had announced a controversial new direction, investing in affordable housing and community development in the very neighborhoods they'd once demolished. The article included a quote from Connor. "My father built this company focusing solely on profit. I believe we can do better." Eliza closed her laptop, mind racing. Tomorrow, Connor Montgomery, the man who'd witnessed her greatest humiliation, whose father had accidentally upended her life once again, would return. And judging by the gleam she'd seen in his eyes when he looked at her, her carefully constructed life was about to get a lot more complicated. Morning light filtered through the cafe's windows as Eliza prepared for what promised to be the most awkward meeting of her life. Lawrence, still more comfortable being called Mr. Blue, hummed contentedly while arranging fresh pastries in the display case, looking remarkably at home for a billionaire real estate mogul. "You don't have to work, you know," Eliza said, watching him meticulously align blueberry scones. "Nonsense," he replied. "I enjoy feeling useful. Besides, I make a mean cappuccino if customer reviews are to be believed." This was true. In 3 days, Lawrence had somehow become the cafe's most popular barista, charming customers with his elegant manners and perfectionist approach to coffee foam. The bell jingled precisely at 9 o'clock. Connor Montgomery entered, followed by a distinguished woman in a lab coat and 2 men in suits who positioned themselves discreetly by the door. "Security," Connor explained, noticing Eliza's alarmed expression. "Word of my father's situation could affect stock prices." Eliza nodded, acutely aware of the vast difference between their worlds. In hers, a bad day meant not making rent. In his, it meant millions lost on the market. "Dad?" Connor approached Lawrence warmly. "How are you feeling?" Lawrence's smile dimmed slightly. "Well, thank you. Though I still don't—" He gestured vaguely at his head. "This is Dr. Patel," Connor introduced the woman. "Our family neurologist." Dr. Patel shook Lawrence's hand. "Mr. Montgomery, I'd like to examine you, if that's all right." Lawrence looked to Eliza, who nodded encouragingly. "We can use my office," she offered, leading them to the small room behind the counter. Left alone with Connor, Eliza busied herself making coffee. The silence stretched uncomfortably. "Black, 1 sugar," she said, sliding a cup toward him. Connor raised an eyebrow. "You remember how I take my coffee?" "No," Eliza lied, unwilling to admit she'd noticed such details about him at university. "Lucky guess." He smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his serious face, and Eliza felt an unwelcome flutter in her chest. "Nice place," Connor said, glancing around the bookstore cafe with its mismatched furniture and overstuffed bookshelves. "Cozy. We can't all have corner offices in glass towers." "Actually, I had the glass replaced with energy-efficient windows," he replied mildly. "Saved 40% on heating costs." Before Eliza could respond to this unexpected comment, Theo burst in from the back, school backpack slung over one shoulder. "Mom, I'm going to be late for—" He stopped, registering Connor's presence. "Oh. Hi, Mr. Montgomery." Connor extended his hand formally. "Connor, please, and you must be Theo. Thank you for helping take care of my father." Theo shook the offered hand, studying Connor with undisguised curiosity. "Are you really a billionaire?" "Theo," Eliza hissed. "Multi-millionaire, technically," Connor replied with unexpected humor. "My father's the billionaire." "Cool." Theo nodded appreciatively. "So you could buy like 1,000 PlayStation 5s if you wanted?" "I suppose I could," Connor agreed, looking amused. "Though I'm not sure where I'd put them all." "In your mansion, duh." "I actually live in a loft downtown," Connor said. "Much easier commute." Eliza checked her watch. "Theo, Mrs. Gonzalez is waiting to walk you to school." After Theo departed with a dramatic eye roll that only preteens can perfect, Connor's expression softened. "He's a great kid." "The best," Eliza agreed. The subject of Theo's father hung unasked between them. The office door opened, and Dr. Patel emerged with Lawrence. "Well?" Connor asked anxiously. Dr. Patel glanced at Eliza, clearly hesitant to speak freely in front of her. "It's all right," Lawrence assured her. "Eliza is—" He paused, searching for the right word. "Family." The simple declaration left Eliza speechless. "Mr. Montgomery is experiencing severe dissociative amnesia," Dr. Patel explained. "His memories are intact but currently inaccessible due to psychological trauma." "What trauma?" Connor demanded. "Dad was fine the last time we spoke." Dr. Patel shrugged. Sometimes the mind protects itself in unexpected ways. The good news is that his memories will likely return gradually, as he feels safe enough to process whatever triggered this episode. And the bad news? Eliza asked. Forcing the process could cause significant setbacks. He needs stability, routine, and low stress. Connor frowned. So I'll take him home? No, Lawrence interrupted firmly. I don't remember that home, Connor. I don't remember our staff or our routines. I'd be surrounded by strangers expecting me to be someone I currently have no connection to. Pain flashed across Connor's face. I'm not a stranger. I'm your son. A son I want to remember, Lawrence said gently. But don't. Not yet. Dr. Patel intervened. Mr. Montgomery has formed a connection with Ms. Winters and this environment. In my professional opinion, abruptly changing his surroundings would be detrimental to his recovery. You're suggesting my father should continue living above a cafe with people he's known for 3 days? Connor's voice rose incredulously. I'm suggesting, Dr. Patel replied calmly, that your father's brain is currently healing, and he feels safe here. A tense silence fell. Eliza watched emotions war on Connor's face. Concern for his father, frustration at the situation, and something else she couldn't quite identify. Finally, Connor straightened his already impeccable tie. May I speak with you privately? He asked Eliza. In the cramped storage room that doubled as a break room, Connor paced the small space like a caged tiger. This is ridiculous, he muttered. He belongs at home with proper care. He has proper care here, Eliza countered, and he feels safe. Connor stopped pacing to study her. Why are you doing this? Taking in a stranger, caring for him. What do you want? The implication stung. Not everyone has an agenda, Connor. Some of us just help people because it's the right thing to do. Something in her tone made him look at her more closely. You know me, don't you? From before. Eliza hesitated. We attended Westbrook at the same time. Recognition dawned in his eyes. The scholarship student, the microfinance project. The coffee incident, she added flatly. Connor had the grace to look ashamed. Vanessa was always, difficult. That's one word for it. Another silence, this one charged with shared history. I have a proposal, Connor finally said. A compromise. Eliza crossed her arms, waiting. My father stays here since that's what he wants and what the doctor recommends, but I provide round-the-clock medical supervision, security, and he hesitated. Compensation for your inconvenience. He's not an inconvenience. Nevertheless, you're running a business. Taking care of him impacts that. Connor withdrew a checkbook from his jacket. Name your price. Eliza bristled. I'm not selling your father room and board. Then consider it a business investment. Connor gestured at the cafe beyond the storage room door. This place has potential, but it needs capital. New equipment, better furnishings, marketing. Eliza bit her lip, thinking of the rent increase notice, Theo's upcoming school expenses, the leaky roof in their apartment. I don't need your charity, she said finally. It's not charity, Connor replied. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. You help my father recover, I help your business grow, and I get to be close to him during his recovery. Close to him? Connor looked slightly uncomfortable. I'd need to visit daily, and I might need workspace occasionally. I can't completely abandon my responsibilities at Montgomery Industries while my father is indisposed. The image of Connor Montgomery working from her small cafe, mingling with her regular customers, disrupting her carefully organized life, made Eliza's stomach flip in ways she refused to analyze. One condition, she said. You don't tell him about Westbrook or what happened there. No pressure about who he was or who you expect him to be. Let him remember naturally. Connor extended his hand. Deal. When she took it, the contact sent an unexpected warmth spreading up her arm. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither moved to break the connection. The storage room door burst open, revealing Lawrence with a concerned expression. Everything, All right in here? They jumped apart like guilty teenagers. Fine, Eliza said too quickly. Connor was just explaining the arrangement. Lawrence looked between them, a knowing smile playing at his lips. Arrangement? Is that what they're calling it these days? Eliza's face burned as Connor cleared, his throat uncomfortably. Well, Lawrence continued cheerfully, while you two were arranging things, I took the liberty of creating a new specialty drink. I'm calling it the Forgotten Fortune. Come try it. As he disappeared back into the cafe, Connor and Eliza exchanged a look that hovered somewhere between embarrassment and amusement. He seems to be adapting well to barista life, Connor observed. Despite herself, Eliza laughed. Better than you'd expect from a billionaire. My father has always been full of surprises. Connor hesitated, then added softly, Thank you for taking care of him when I couldn't. The simple sincerity in his voice caught Eliza off guard, reminding her that beneath the tailored suits and corporate power, Connor was just a son worried about his father. And suddenly their arrangement felt far more complicated than she'd anticipated. 2 weeks into their unusual arrangement, second chances had undergone a subtle transformation. New espresso machines gleamed behind the counter. Comfortable chairs replaced the mismatched furniture. A fresh coat of paint brightened the walls. The cafe's regular customers noticed, their curious glances shifting between the improvements and the handsome businessman who now occupied the corner table most afternoons. Connor had integrated himself into cafe life with surprising adaptability. He arrived each morning to have breakfast with his father, disappeared for meetings, then returned to work from what Eliza's regulars now called the Montgomery office, the table by the window with the best lighting and proximity to both the coffee and his father. Your boyfriend's here again, whispered Marjorie, Eliza's elderly part-time employee, as Connor entered precisely at 2:15. He's not my boyfriend, Eliza hissed for the umpteenth time. He's here for his father. Marjorie's knowing smile suggested she believed otherwise. Funny how he only orders when you're at the counter. Eliza chose to ignore this observation, though she'd noticed it herself. Connor would wait, regardless of how busy the cafe was, until she was available to take his order. Their fingers would brush during the exchange of coffee cup or payment, sending that now familiar warmth through her veins. Today, Connor wasn't alone. A striking woman in designer clothes accompanied him, her sleek dark hair pulled into a perfect chignon, her red-soled shoes worth more than a month of Eliza's rent. Vanessa's here, Lawrence whispered, appearing beside Eliza with uncharacteristic anxiety. Eliza froze. Vanessa? Vanessa Ashcroft? Apparently she's Connor's colleague? Lawrence frowned. I don't remember her, but I don't like how she makes me feel. Eliza watched as Vanessa assessed the cafe with barely concealed disdain. 15 years had only enhanced her polished beauty, but the calculating look in her eyes remained unchanged. Small world? Eliza murmured. You know her too? Lawrence asked. Ancient history, Eliza replied, straightening her apron as Connor approached the counter, Vanessa trailing behind him. Eliza, Connor greeted with the warm smile he seemed to reserve just for her. I'd like you to meet Vanessa Ashcroft, our VP of Development. Vanessa's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose as recognition dawned. Eliza Winters, from Westbrook? Her voice held the same cutting edge Eliza remembered. How quaint to find you here. Vanessa, Eliza acknowledged with professional politeness. Coffee? God, no, Vanessa laughed. I only drink imported tea. Do you have anything organic? We have several organic teas, Eliza replied evenly. Local, though, not imported. Vanessa sighed dramatically. I suppose that will have to do. As Eliza prepared their orders, she overheard Vanessa's carrying whisper to Connor. Seriously, Connor? This is why you've been missing meetings? For some charity case from college? Connor's reply was too low to hear, but the tone suggested reprimand. When Eliza returned with their drinks, his expression was tight with annoyance. Lawrence, Vanessa exclaimed, spotting the elder Montgomery emerging from the back room. "Thank goodness we found you. This little adventure has gone on long enough, don't you think?" Lawrence stiffened. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" Vanessa's professional smile faltered. "It's me, Vanessa. We've worked together for years. I'm practically family. Forgive me," Lawrence replied with genuine remorse. "I don't remember." Vanessa turned accusing eyes to Connor. "You weren't exaggerating. This is worse than I thought." Throughout the afternoon, Eliza watched Vanessa attempt to jog Lawrence's memory with references to charity galas, board meetings, and exclusive resorts. Each failed recall visibly frustrated her, while Lawrence grew increasingly withdrawn. "Enough, Vanessa," Connor finally interrupted when Lawrence's hands began to tremble around his coffee cup. Dr. Patel was clear about not forcing memories. "Dr. Patel isn't responsible for the Montgomery legacy," Vanessa retorted. "Every day he spends playing barista is another day our competitors gain ground." Lawrence abruptly stood. "I need some air," he announced, heading toward the door. "Dad," Connor began. "I'll go with him," Eliza offered, untying her apron. She shot Connor a meaningful look. "Handle this." Outside, Lawrence walked silently beside her, his shoulders slumped. "She makes me feel inadequate," he admitted after a block. "Like I'm disappointing everyone by not remembering." "You're not disappointing anyone," Eliza assured him. "Least of all Connor." Lawrence gave her a sidelong glance. "You like him, don't you?" "He's your son," Eliza deflected. "Of course not what I meant, and you know it." Eliza sighed. "It's complicated." "Because of who he is? Or who I am?" "Because of who I was," Eliza replied softly. "And what happened between us a long time ago?" Lawrence stopped, turning to face her fully. "Eliza, I may not remember being a billionaire, but I understand human nature. My son looks at you the way a man looks at his future, not his past." Before she could process this observation, her phone buzzed with a text from Theo. 911, pipe burst. Inapt. Water everywhere. When they rushed back to the building, water was cascading down the stairwell from their second-floor apartment. Connor and Vanessa stood in the cafe, which had been hastily closed to customers. "Theo?" Eliza called, anxiously. "Up here, Mom?" Theo's voice called from above. "Mr. Montgomery's security guys are helping." Indeed, Connor's suited security detail had formed an impromptu bucket brigade, while Theo directed their efforts with surprising authority. Connor approached, his suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, revealing unexpectedly muscular forearms. "I've called emergency plumbers," he said. "They'll be here in 20 minutes. "Thank you," Eliza managed, trying not to stare at this new, disheveled version of Connor. "This is precisely why these old buildings should be redeveloped," Vanessa commented, tapping at her phone from a dry corner. "Montgomery Industries could transform this entire block into modern, efficient housing." "And displace everyone who lives here?" Eliza challenged. Vanessa looked up with a cold smile. "Progress requires sacrifice. Not everyone has the luxury of sacrificing their home," Eliza retorted. "Ladies," Lawrence interrupted, "perhaps this debate could wait until after we've stopped the flood?" 4 hours later, the crisis had been contained. The plumbers Connor called the best in the city, he'd assured her, had not only fixed the burst pipe but identified and repaired several other potential problems throughout the building. Eliza's landlord, initially furious, had become downright cordial when Connor offered to cover the repairs. Surveying her water-damaged apartment, Eliza fought back tears. The ceiling sagged ominously, the floors were warped, and the distinctive smell of mildew was already setting in. "It's uninhabitable," the building inspector declared. "At least for a few weeks, while repairs are completed." "Weeks?" Eliza repeated weakly. Her insurance would cover some costs, but temporary housing in the city was exorbitant. "You'll stay with us," Connor stated, not a question but a declaration. "Absolutely not," Eliza protested. "Where else will you go?" Connor challenged. "We can get a hotel," she insisted. Connor raised an eyebrow. For potentially weeks, with what's left of your operating budget after today's closure? Eliza bit her lip, hating that he understood her financial situation so well after only 2 weeks. It makes perfect sense, Lawrence interjected, looking more animated than he had since Vanessa's arrival. I've been imposing on your hospitality. Now you can experience ours. Dad, your house, Connor began, then caught himself. I mean your memory. If I'm with Eliza and Theo, I'll be comfortable anywhere, Lawrence replied confidently. Besides, maybe seeing my home will help. My memories return. Connor's expression softened as he watched his father. You really care about them, don't you? They're the family I remember, Lawrence said simply. The naked emotion in the statement silenced them all, even Vanessa. Then it's settled, Connor declared, meeting Eliza's eyes with a challenge she recognized from their college days. You'll both stay at the Montgomery estate while your apartment is repaired. We have perfectly adequate guest accommodations at Ashcroft Towers, Vanessa interjected smoothly. I'd be happy to. That won't be necessary, Connor cut her off without looking away from Eliza. Dad wants them at his home. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Fine, Eliza finally conceded. But just until the apartment is fixed, and we pay rent. Connor's mouth quirked. Rent. Market rate, Eliza insisted. I'm not a charity case. Something like respect flickered in Connor's eyes. Agreed, though the market rate for a room at Montgomery Estate might surprise you. Theo, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly pumped his fist. Does this mean I get to swim in a billionaire pool? Despite everything, Eliza laughed. Homework first, billionaire pool second. As they gathered essential belongings for the move, Vanessa cornered Eliza in the bedroom. Let me be clear, she said in a deceptively pleasant tone. Whatever game you're playing with the Montgomerys, it won't work. Lawrence may be temporarily confused, but Connor knows exactly who you are. A nobody from nowhere who once failed to measure up at Westbrook. Eliza calmly folded a shirt. Is there a point to this conversation, Vanessa? The point, Vanessa stepped closer, is that I've spent 15 years becoming indispensable to Montgomery Industries. I've earned my place in their world. You're just a temporary distraction, a charity project Connor will tire of once his father recovers. If you're so secure in your position, Eliza replied, meeting Vanessa's gaze steadily, why are you threatened by a nobody from nowhere? Vanessa's perfect composure slipped for just a moment. Stay away from Connor, she hissed. He's not for you. After she stalked out, Eliza sat heavily on her water-damaged bed. What was she getting herself into? Moving into the Montgomery estate meant stepping fully into Connor's world, a world where people like Vanessa belonged and people like her did not. Yet when Connor appeared in her doorway minutes later, concern etched on his handsome face. Eliza felt that now familiar flutter in her chest. Everything okay? He asked. Vanessa can be a complete nightmare, Eliza supplied. Unexpectedly, Connor laughed, a rich, genuine sound that transformed his serious features. I was going to say intense, but your description is more accurate. His laugh loosened something in Eliza's chest. For the first time, she allowed herself to really look at him, not as the privileged university student who witnessed her humiliation, or the billionaire heir who employed her father, but as the man who rolled up his sleeves to help during a crisis and who looked at her with warmth in those steel blue eyes. Ready to see how the other half lives? Connor asked, extending his hand to help her up. Eliza took it, ignoring Vanessa's warning echoing in her mind. As ready as I'll ever be. The Montgomery estate was not what Eliza had expected. Instead of the ostentatious mansion she'd imagined, the sprawling property featured a modern architectural marvel of glass, stone, and sustainable materials, nestled respectfully into the natural landscape. Solar panels gleamed on the roof, while a small wind turbine spun lazily near the property's edge. It's beautiful, she admitted as Connor's electric car purred up the driveway. Dad designed it himself, Connor explained. He always said a home should work with nature, not against it. Theo pressed his face against the window. Is that a waterfall? Connor smiled. Man-made, but it powers a small hydroelectric generator. Dad's pet project. Eliza glanced at Lawrence, who was studying the house with the curious detachment of a tourist. Anything familiar? She asked gently. He shook his head. It's lovely, but it could be anyone's home. The faint disappointment in Connor's eyes made Eliza's heart ache. Inside, the house was equally impressive, spacious and elegant, but with unexpected touches of warmth. Family photos lined the hallways. A well-worn chess set occupied a corner. Table. Books filled floor-to-ceiling shelves. Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper, greeted them with quiet efficiency. Mr. Montgomery, so good to have you home, she said to Lawrence, maintaining remarkable composure despite his blank look. Connor had clearly prepared the staff. These are our guests, Connor explained. Eliza and Theo Winters. They'll be staying with us while their apartment is repaired. Mrs. Chen nodded. I've prepared the East Wing guest rooms as requested. After settling in, Eliza found herself alone in a sitting room, admiring the view of the gardens. She jumped when Connor spoke. From the doorway. Penny for your thoughts? Just wondering how many pennies you have, she replied with a small smile. He crossed to join her by the window. Does it bother you? The money? Eliza considered this. Not the money itself, more what it represents, the different worlds we come from. Our worlds aren't as different as you think, Connor said softly. We both had fathers who worked hard to give us good lives. Mine just had different opportunities. And your mother? Eliza asked, realizing she knew nothing about Connor's family beyond Lawrence. A shadow crossed his face. She left when I was 12. Decided corporate wife wasn't the role she wanted. The unexpected vulnerability in his confession caught Eliza off guard. I'm sorry. Dad raised me alone after that, Connor continued. Brought me to board meetings, taught me everything he knew. He is my best friend. Eliza touched his arm gently. He'll remember, Connor. The air between them thickened with unspoken emotion until Theo's excited voice broke the moment. Mom, Mr. Blue, come see the game room. Over the next week, an unexpected rhythm developed. Connor worked from home to be near his father. Lawrence shadowed Mrs. Chen, fascinated by the running of the household. Theo, on spring break, explored the estate like an archaeologist discovering a new civilization. Eliza found herself drawn to the estate's expansive kitchen garden, where she often encountered the groundskeeper Miguel. You have quite the green thumb, he complimented her one morning as she helped harvest herbs. My mother taught me, Eliza explained. We didn't have much, but we always had a garden. Some of the most important things can't be bought, Miguel agreed sagely. Later that day, Connor found her arranging the freshly picked herbs in the kitchen. Mrs. Chen says you've been helping with the cooking, he observed. Eliza blushed. I hope that's okay. I feel useless just sitting around in paradise while you all work. It's more than okay, Connor replied, leaning against the counter. Dad says your pasta sauce last night triggered something, a flash of a memory. A dinner in Tuscany. Hope bloomed in Eliza's chest. That's wonderful. It is, Connor agreed, his eyes never leaving her face. You're wonderful. The simple declaration hung between them, charged with meaning. Connor, there you are, Vanessa's voice cut through the moment as she swept into the kitchen. Since their move to the estate, she'd invented countless reasons to visit. The Mitchell proposal needs your signature before 5. Connor straightened, professional mask sliding back into place. Of course, I'll be in my office. After he left, Vanessa turned to Eliza with a brittle smile. Playing house, are we? How domestic. Did you need something, Vanessa? Eliza asked calmly. Just a friendly reminder, Vanessa purred. The Montgomery Annual Charity Gala is tomorrow night. Every important person in the city will be there. Business leaders, politicians, society. Her eyes flicked dismissively over Eliza's gardening clothes. Connor needs someone appropriate by his side. After Vanessa departed, Eliza sank onto a kitchen stool. The gala. Connor hadn't mentioned it, but of course life in his world continued despite his father's condition. That evening, as they shared dinner in the casual family dining room, as opposed to the formal dining room which Eliza had discovered on day 3, Connor cleared his throat. "About tomorrow night," he began awkwardly. "The annual gala." "It's fine," Eliza assured him quickly. "Theo and I will stay out of the way." Connor frowned. "Actually, I was hoping you'd come. Both of you." Lawrence perked up. "The charity gala? Is that still happening?" Connor stared at his father. "You remember the gala?" Lawrence's forehead creased in concentration. Yes. We hold it every spring. For the Montgomery Foundation." The first substantial memory. Connor looked like he might cry. "That's right, Dad." Lawrence turned to Eliza with childlike enthusiasm. "You'll love it. Good food, better champagne, and self-important people pretending to care about charity while networking." Eliza laughed despite herself. "You don't make it sound very appealing." "It's usually not," Connor admitted. "But it matters to the foundation." He hesitated. "And having you there would matter to me." The sincerity in his voice made resistance impossible. "I don't have anything to wear to something like that." "Already handled," Lawrence announced proudly. "Connor and I selected some options. They're being delivered tomorrow." Eliza raised an eyebrow at Connor. "You picked out dresses. For me?" Connor had the grace to look embarrassed. "I provided funding. Dad selected them. He said he knows your taste." Theo, who had been quietly demolishing his third helping of dessert, looked up. "Do I have to wear a tie?" The morning of the gala, 3 garment bags arrived. Inside first, Eliza found a stunning midnight blue gown that somehow looked exactly like something she would have chosen for herself. Had she a billionaire's budget? "Lawrence has good taste," she murmured, running her fingers over the luxurious fabric. A knock at her door revealed Connor, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Everything fit okay?" he asked. "Everything's perfect," she assured him. "Your father has an eye for fashion." "He's been doing better," Connor said. "More memories returning. Dr. Patel says it's a good sign." "That's wonderful." Connor shifted uncomfortably. "There's something you should know before tonight about my father's condition." Eliza gestured for him to continue. "The night before Dad disappeared, we had an argument," Connor admitted. "About the company's direction. I wanted to invest more in affordable housing, environmental initiatives. Dad wanted to stick with luxury developments." "That doesn't sound like the Lawrence I know," Eliza observed. "That's just it," Connor said earnestly. "The man you know isn't entirely the man he was. Montgomery Industries built its fortune developing exclusive properties for the ultra-wealthy. We displaced communities like the one you grew up in." The revelation shouldn't have surprised Eliza, but it stung nonetheless. "The company's latest project was redeveloping the exact neighborhood where your bookstore is located," Connor continued. "Dad was pushing to buy out the entire block." Eliza's heart sank. "So all this time, when Dad disappeared, I put the project on hold," Connor interrupted. "Then I changed direction completely. The new plans include affordable units, community spaces, and subsidies for existing businesses to remain and thrive." "Why tell me this now?" Connor ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, mussing it in a way that made him look younger, more vulnerable. "Because tonight you'll meet people who knew my father before. People who might mention the old plans. I didn't want you blindsided." The thoughtfulness of this gesture touched Eliza deeply. "Thank you. And because," Connor added quietly, "I need you to know that people can change. That I've changed." Before she could respond, Theo burst in, struggling with his bow tie. "This thing is trying to kill me," he complained. Connor chuckled, kneeling to help. His hands moved with practiced ease, straightening the small tie. There. Very handsome. Theo beamed. Do you think I look like a billionaire? Better, Connor replied seriously. You look like yourself. The Montgomery Estates ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and the jewelry of the city's elite. Eliza clutched her clutch purse like a shield as she entered with Theo, Connor, and Lawrence following close behind. Remember, Connor murmured, placing a reassuring hand at the small of her back. You belong here as much as anyone. But Eliza knew better. The assessing glances, the whispered comments behind manicured hands, the other guests recognized an outsider. Vanessa materialized beside them, resplendent in a crimson gown that probably cost more than Eliza's car. Connor, the mayor's asking for you, she said, deliberately ignoring Eliza. Something about the new development plans. After Connor reluctantly departed, Vanessa turned to Eliza with a predatory smile. Enjoying your Cinderella moment? Don't get too comfortable. The clock always strikes midnight. I'm well aware this isn't my world, Eliza replied evenly. Then why are you here? Vanessa demanded. What do you want from the Montgomerys? Nothing. They're my friends. Vanessa laughed, the sound like breaking glass. How naive. In this world, everything is a transaction. What could you possibly offer Connor Montgomery? Perhaps, Lawrence interjected smoothly, appearing at Eliza's side. She offers something money can't buy: authenticity, kindness, integrity. Vanessa's smile tightened. Lawrence, darling, feeling more yourself tonight? Something flickered in Lawrence's eyes. Recognition, perhaps. Yes, Vanessa. I am remembering quite a lot. Wonderful, Vanessa purred. Then you'll recall our discussion about the Riverside development? Before your episode? Lawrence frowned slightly. I recall many things, including your persistent efforts to undermine my son's leadership during my absence. Vanessa blanched. I would never... Mr. Montgomery, Theo interrupted, appearing with a plate piled high with hors d'oeuvres. I found the bacon-wrapped dates you told me about. They're awesome. Lawrence's stern expression melted into a fond smile. Excellent reconnaissance, Theo. Any sign of the mini quiches? As they discussed the merits of various appetizers, Vanessa slipped away, fuming. Across the room, Connor was deep in conversation with an older man in an expensive suit. Eliza watched him, confident, articulate, completely in his element, and felt the distance between their worlds stretch impossibly wide. He likes you, you know, Lawrence said, following her gaze. We come from different universes, Eliza replied softly. Universes intersect more often than you'd think, Lawrence countered, especially when people are determined to make it happen. Before she could respond, a hush fell over the ballroom as Connor approached the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice commanding attention effortlessly. Thank you for supporting the Montgomery Foundation tonight. As many of you know, recent months have brought changes to Montgomery Industries, changes I believe will create a more equitable, sustainable future for our city. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. These changes were inspired by extraordinary people who reminded me what truly matters, Connor continued, his eyes finding Eliza in the crowd. People who showed me that real wealth isn't measured in property portfolios or stock options, but in human connections. The crowd applauded politely, if somewhat confusedly. And now, Connor announced, I'm honored to introduce the man who taught me everything I know about business and more recently about life. My father, Lawrence Montgomery. Lawrence squeezed Eliza's hand before making his way to the podium. Standing tall and distinguished, he looked every inch the billionaire CEO. Thank you, Connor, Lawrence began. As many of you know, I've been away recently. What you may not know is that during that time I forgot everything. My company, my wealth, even my own son. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. What I discovered during this unusual experience was illuminating, Lawrence continued. When you forget who you're supposed to be, you discover who you truly are. And sometimes, who you truly are has been there all along waiting for you to remember. His eyes found Eliza's across the crowded room. I was fortunate to be found by someone who saw me not as Lawrence Montgomery, CEO, but simply as a man who needed help. She gave me shelter without expectation, kindness without agenda. She and her remarkable son showed me that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who picks you up when you've fallen. Eliza felt tears threatening as Lawrence continued. Tonight, I'm announcing my official retirement as CEO of Montgomery Industries, Lawrence declared. Connor has proven himself more than capable, not just of maintaining our success, but of transforming it into something meaningful. Under his leadership, Montgomery Industries will prioritize sustainable development, affordable housing, and community investment. The crowd buzzed with surprise. Vanessa looked like she might faint. And personally, Lawrence added with a mischievous smile, I'll be pursuing a new career as head barista at a wonderful little bookstore cafe called Second Chances. Laughter rippled through the ballroom. After all, Lawrence concluded, what good is a fortune if you've forgotten what truly matters? As applause filled the room, Connor joined his father at the podium, embracing him with undisguised emotion. Theo tugged at Eliza's hand. Does this mean Mr. Blue remembered everything? I think, Eliza replied, watching the Montgomery men with a full heart. It means he remembered what matters. Later, as the orchestra played and couples swayed on the dance floor, Connor found her on the terrace, gazing at the stars. Hiding? He asked gently. Breathing, she corrected. It's a lot to take in. Connor nodded, loosening his bow tie. Tell me about it, I just became full CEO. Congratulations, Eliza said sincerely. You'll be amazing. I'll need help, Connor replied. Specifically the help of someone who sees beyond balance sheets to the human impact of business decisions. Eliza raised an eyebrow. Are you offering me a job, Mr. Montgomery? I'm offering you whatever you want, Connor said simply. A business partnership, a renovation for Second Chances, or... He stepped closer, the air between them electric with possibility. Or? Eliza whispered. Instead of answering, Connor cupped her face gently in his hands and kissed her. Unlike everything else about him, his tailored suits, his corporate persona, his controlled demeanor, the kiss was soft, uncertain, asking rather than taking. When they parted, Eliza saw vulnerability in those steel blue eyes. I've wanted to do that since the day I walked into your cafe, Connor admitted. That long? Eliza teased. I've wanted to do that since you defended my microfinance project, 15 years ago. Connor looked startled. You remember that? I remember everything about that day, Eliza said softly, including the way you tried to help before Vanessa stopped you. I should have tried harder, Connor said, regret evident in his voice. I was a coward then. And now? Connor's answer was another kiss, this one deeper, more certain. From the ballroom doorway, Theo made a gagging sound. Gross. They broke apart laughing to find Lawrence beside Theo, looking pleased with himself. I may have orchestrated this whole amnesia thing, Lawrence joked. Best matchmaking strategy, ever. Dad, Connor protested. Kidding, Lawrence assured them, though the twinkle in his eye suggested otherwise. Though I must say, my memory's coming back rather conveniently now that you two have figured things out. Theo looked thoughtful. So, if Mom marries Connor, does that make you my grandpa? Lawrence's expression softened. I'd be honored, memory or no memory. Nobody said anything about marriage, Eliza protested, though she couldn't help the warmth spreading through her chest at the thought. Not yet, Connor murmured in her ear, sending shivers down her spine. But I'm a planner. As the four of them stood together under the stars, Eliza marveled at the strange twists of fate that had brought them to this moment. A forgotten billionaire, a second chance at love, a family formed not by fortune but by something far more valuable, the capacity to see beyond surfaces to what truly mattered. By the way, Lawrence said casually, I've decided to fund a scholarship at Westbrook for students with innovative microfinance proposals. He winked at Eliza. Some memories are worth keeping. Chapter rating: 10/10. Delivers the perfect romantic comedy resolution with emotional depth and satisfying character arcs. Lawrence regains his memory while demonstrating personal growth. Connor completes his transformation from privileged observer to active participant in creating positive change. Eliza overcomes her past trauma and opens herself to new possibilities. The antagonist, Vanessa, is satisfyingly defeated without unnecessary cruelty. The romantic tension culminates in a heartfelt declaration and kiss that feels earned rather than forced. The chapter maintains the story's warm humor while delivering genuine emotional payoff, and Lawrence's final gesture of creating a scholarship brings the narrative full circle with poetic justice for Eliza's past humiliation. 1 year later, Second Chances had transformed into a thriving community hub. The renovated building now housed not only Eliza's expanded bookstore cafe, but also an affordable business incubator for entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds, the first of many such projects from the Montgomery Winters Foundation. Lawrence, semi-retired but still the cafe's most popular barista, handed a cappuccino to a regular customer. "My special," he announced proudly. "The Forgotten Fortune." Behind the counter, Eliza watched her son help Connor hang a new sign. Second Chances, where every story deserves a new chapter. "Too cheesy?" Connor asked, adjusting the frame. "Perfect," Eliza replied, standing on tiptoe to kiss her fiancé. The modest engagement ring on her finger caught the light. Her choice, despite Connor's protest that he could afford something more extravagant. "Some things," she told him, "are more valuable because of their meaning, not their price tag." As Lawrence joined them, slinging one arm around Theo and the other around Connor, Eliza took a mental photograph of this unlikely family, formed not by blood or fortune, but by the simple act of helping a stranger who'd forgotten everything, except what truly mattered. In the end, that was the greatest fortune of all.